Alright, quick update on JASMY. So, we're really not doing too much today. We're kind of just hanging out, but we have had an important retest. So, if we start off on the daily time frame, because of the one thing that I want to talk about, we've come back and back tested. You can see this blue line here. This just means that it's not, necessary support or resistance, but it is this previous local top that we had up here. I said when we were all the way up at 5 cent, that in my opinion we were coming back to back test it no matter what, and we finally come back down because we fell through it the first time. We've had a push up from the lows, and now we are back testing that line, so it's very good. I mean, that we're seeing a very tiny bounce. We really haven't seen too much of an impulse since we came back down and back tested this line. We've just got up it in the past 4 hourly candles, if I make this a little bit thicker. So what's going on in the lower time frames? Well, JASMY's actually having a nice pump in the past 4 hours, which is quite surprising for a lot of cryptos, because if we come over to Bitcoin, especially if we look, well, Bitcoin's having a slight push up in the past 4 hours as well. But Bitcoin has really been coming down and back testing the bottom of this ascending channel. So the whole market is a little bit shaky right now, including JASMY. The total crypto market cap is getting shaken out below your important 618 fib at the 1.64 trillion. So a lot of stuff going on today. The market is really kind of scared right now at this point, so I'm hoping that we put in another bounce. As far as I can tell, as long as we don't come out and take out these lows, this was just another higher low on Bitcoin's time frame. So I think as long as that is the case, then we should see continuation on JASMY. One slight worrying warning sign that I can see here on the 4 hour, you can actually see that we've got something like a head and shoulders pattern playing out. And depending on which way you draw it, this is why I don't like trend lines. See, if you draw it like this, you can make the argument that we have a shoulder, head, shoulder, and we've just had a bounce on the trend line. But I imagine you could draw it kind of horizontal like this. Yeah, this would definitely work. You could also argue, if you were bear squad, you could argue, this would be a head and shoulder that we've broken down and back tested from. I don't think it's going to have much significance by itself, especially considering we've come back into the 4 hourly EMA ribbons and had a pretty decent bounce. We've also had a bounce on your 2.618, which I initially said when we were all the way down here I'd like to see us get back above. So it is good that we are bouncing on this. We're bouncing on the 4 hourly EMA, volume coming in. On the lower time frames like the 4 hour, this is really your do or die moment in the next 8 hours. Because what I mean by that is, the market moves in waves, and we've talked about this before, where you have these bearish rallies. Sometimes they reaccumulate momentum and then push back up. Like here you can see we pushed back to the upside, reaccumulated momentum, and then pushed back up. So hopefully we're seeing something in the next 8 hours where we're having a reversal. If not, it could get ugly in the short term and we could have a pullback. In yesterday's video, I talked about, the trade which we entered in. We entered down here on this orange line. And I talked about my stop loss yesterday. I have included it at this region right here. Let's mark this. Let's mark this yellow. I'll put a text box on it just so we know. There we go. So I have my stop loss down here. We got in a trade round about this region. So what are we currently up? So from when we entered the trade, we're up about 27%. So I mean, we're still looking good. We're not under the water or anything since my last couple of videos ago. But just to let you know, in case you didn't watch my last video, I have included a stop loss in this trade. I am putting it at the 1.92 region, and if you zoom out, you can see this is your 786 fib. And considering how we've already broken below the 786 and started to push back up, I would really hope that we don't come back down here, because we've already been down here twice and put in a double bottom. I think an impulse up coming into the 618 and then having a pushback down to the 786 is going to be super bearish. So that is why I have a stop loss included with the 786. But as a general rule of thumb, I think JASMY looks good. I mean, scratch out this head and shoulders. You can draw it a few different ways, and I don't think it has enough confluence and confidence by itself to move the market down, especially as depending on which way you draw it, you could have had a bounce. Even if you've broken below it, we have the opportunity to come back above this previous invalidation point at this local high, which also nicely lines up with the horizontal support, flipped resistance when we did break down, also the neckline of this head and shoulders pattern. So it's good that we have poked our head above this. Keep your eye, I'd like to say keep your eye on 2.27, but in theory, I mean, as long as we hold these EMA ribbons down here in the 2.618, so I'd say, you know, anything above 0.0223 is going to be very healthy for JASMY. And looking at this in a more macro perspective, I'm not going to talk about this and go in depth with it in every single video, but we did talk about the last momentum shift that we had over on the squeeze mom, and how we basically went from, you know, this momentum shift down here all the way up a 350% pump. We are now having that momentum shift step in, so I do think there's a lot more room for the upside for JASMY. Do bear in mind we are kind of getting rejected from these daily EMAs as well though, so I would like to see continuation. It does look like we want to put continuation in, but you know, looking at what's happening with Bitcoin with this important retest, you know, we're either going to bounce from this, or we're going to have a wick below, or we're going to, you know, crash below. And if two of those things happen, you know, wicking and moving below, then, you know, the gains that have been made in the past day or so on JASMY could be wiped out. So I'm including a stop loss. I at least want to walk away with this 7% profit. I think that's very conservative as well, because I don't see JASMY going down to those levels. However, if we do, I would like to walk away with some money. So we've got an area of resistance right now coming in. Basically, these EMA ribbons, these are going to be slightly hard to get above. I do think once we get above those, it is all fair game though. So that's all I see for JASMY. I'm still exceptionally bullish on this in the short term. Still looks like we're having a momentum shift. We're having an increase in bullish volume. Bulls are taking over in the lower time frames. Hopefully we're seeing a momentum reset, and we've also got some good volume coming in the past 4 hours. That is all I've got for you. Keep your eyes on Bitcoin. Ideally, I wouldn't like to see us move below 39,000. If we do, it has to be a wick. Otherwise, you know, it could get very, very ugly very, very quick. That's all I've got for you for JASMY. Once again, not financial advice. Cowboy out. Peace.